country. And the other one I sold to a private operator. Well, I went onto the website of this big company and I went down and they had all their numbers. And one of them was cost of customer acquisition. You see, when you rent out a self-storage, in order to get people to come to you, you usually have to give them bonuses and discounts and free rent and things like that. And then there is an average amount of length of time that they will continue to use the unit, and it runs about 7 months. So we know that. So now we can calculate how much can we pay to buy a customer. And I went there. It says cost of customer acquisition $42.55 per customer. They knew to the penny exactly how many discounts, bonuses, and everything they would have to give to get the customer to come to them for the first time. They're also the biggest and most profitable company in self-storage in the world today. Why? It's because they know how much it costs to buy a customer. And everything is focused on lowering that number. But they're absolutely crystal clear, so they can project forward. If we spend this much, we'll get this many new customers. This many new customers will come to us and use our facilities for 7 months. They'll pay an average of this much per month for 7 months, and this is the amount of profit that we will make after all expenses. They know right to the penny. And by the way, there are software programs. You just fill in the numbers, basically your numbers, your sales numbers and your cost numbers. You push a button, and it'll generate all this. It's called dashboard programs. They will you say, these are all the numbers I want to know. You put it in. They'll say, all right, put this number in the beginning, push the button, and they generate all your numbers for you. And you can buy these programs, online. They're not expensive. So number 9 is the average size of sale. If you can increase the average size of your sale and holding all costs constant, the profit just flows to the bottom line. What is the average gross profit per sale? If you make a sale, what is the average gross profit margin as a percentage? I work with a $750 million company, and they look at 2 numbers. They look at the gross margin percentage. If they sell something for $100, what percentage is gross margin before they deduct all the other expenses? Furniture companies. So they buy furniture from furniture manufacturers. They sell for $100. The furniture manufacturer charges them $40. So their gross margin is $60. And they're always looking, and so the percentage is 40%. And they're always looking for ways to make that percentage 39%, 38%. How can we combine orders? How can we buy more things? How can we combine orders from each of our 42 different stores so that instead of ordering individually, we can order in larger quantities, get discounts? Are you with me so far? And they're always thinking about percentage of gross margin. And then they think about the average net profit per sale, which we'll talk about in a second. But it is astonishing. If I ask anybody in this room, what is your net profit per sale, nobody will know. They know their gross profit and their rough profit and their average profit and their dreamed of profit. But most people are not clear because they don't deduct every single little expense. Even at the parking space that you have to pay for in front of your building is an expense that goes against the sale, goes against each sale. So like, for example, in our business, we have an average last month, 1,054 sales. And what we started off with is our average sale was about $54, and then $55, and then $56. And we kept the average number of sales growing. It went from about 400 or 500 sales to 600, 700, 800, and the average size per sale from 55 to 60 to 65 to 70. Now our average sale is $109, and the number of sales is 1,054 last month. So you see, by working on increasing the average size of sale and increasing the number of individual sales, we've taken our business from $1,200 a month to $250,000 a month, which is multiple of what, 200 times? Because we watch the numbers. And then we do A/B testing. What will cause people to buy more rather than less? And we just keep looking at the numbers. So we've increased our sales by 200 times by simply offering the same products on the same website. Maybe new products, things like that. But just by watching the numbers, and say, how could we tweak this number? How could we make this number just a little bit better? What is the average cost per sale? Total, add up everything, and I'll come to this in a second. This is really important. I keep coming back to this because if you're out on this, you can actually be losing money on each sale. Number 14, what is the average number of times that a customer buys? Let me tell you a great story. We call this the lifetime value of a customer. My friend Jay Abraham is a marketing expert. And a guy came to him many years ago, and he had a product, and he was manufacturing it at home, and he wondered how he could make this product a big product. Well, this guy was an athlete, and he had developed, by testing, a liniment that you put on sore muscles, and it penetrated into the muscle and took away the pain. And he had experimented with chemicals because he worked in a gym, and he found that if you put, when the first time you put it on, it was really cold, and then as it sat there, it would get really hot, and the warmth would go into the muscle, take away the pain. So he came up with a real simple name. He called it Icy Hot. All right? And he would sell it for $5 a bottle, and people would take it, and he'd guarantee it. He said, if you're not happy, you can give it back. People would take it and rub it on their feet or their hands or something else, and it would take the pain away. And they said, geez, this is really great stuff. And they would buy again and again. Eventually, he found he could buy a machine with tubes, like toothpaste tubes, that would seal, and he could pump it into the toothpaste tubes, and it was much cheaper than a bottle or a glass, easier to ship, less breakage, and so on. So he began making this stuff at his home, in his garage, and selling it in his nearby circle, and he'd sell it to local gyms and sporting goods stores and health food stores and so on, and everybody liked it. So he said, how can I increase my sales? So here was the idea. He said, how many times does a person buy your product after they buy the first one? Well, he hadn't calculated that number, so he went back and he went to the stores that sold it and asked about how many times do people come back and buy this, and he looked at his own sales receipts, and so it came out to about 5 times. If a person bought one tube in January, over the course of the year, they would buy 4 more. So then the question was, well, what is the profit per unit? And he worked out that the total cost of all the ingredients, manufacturing, labor, packaging, labeling, everything else, about $1 per unit. So the sales price was $5. The cost was $1. So his net profit was $4. Are you with me so far? And so Jay, who's brilliant, said, why don't you just give it away first time? Why don't you just give it away? And he said, well, give it away, give it away. Remember we talked about changing the way you think? He said, give it away. He said, yeah. If you gave it away the first time and people bought 4 more, you'll make $4 profit on each one from a gift. So you'd make $16 each time you gave one away over the course of the year. So don't look upon the customer as a one-time customer. Look upon the customer over the lifetime during which they purchase. And don't even take into consideration referrals, recommendations, long-time users, just 1 year. And so he said, now you can charge shipping and handling. So if people buy it, you can advertise it. If people buy it, charge $1.25 for shipping and handling. It's free. You just pay shipping and handling. Now, it's $1 to manufacture, 25-cent postage. So you're going to break even on your first sale. So he began to advertise, and he ran small advertisements, and he said, best muscle pain reliever in the market, free sample. Well, people started to call from everywhere to get a free sample. And then they came back and they bought 4 more over the course of the year. He went from operating in his basement to a small warehouse location to a bigger warehouse location. Pretty soon he was selling all over the country because he could run ads, and every single person who replied to an ad to buy 1 free sample was worth $16. Are you with me so far? Thousands of people had said, oh, I'll give it a try. And each person on average was worth $16. 5 years later, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the United States came along and bought him out for $100 million. And he retired rich, and he's rich today. Paid him $100 million for his business, and then they rolled it out worldwide. And so if ever you see Icy Hot in a store, that's the story of Icy Hot. And why? It's because instead of focusing on how much I earn from this sale, focus on how much you earn over the lifetime of the customer. If they're really happy, will they come back over and over? If you go to a good restaurant, by the way, and I've been to restaurants, and I can tell the restaurant will tell me, you know, one restaurant told me, we calculated how much you spent here in the last year. It's over $2,000. So when you come here for the first time, or somebody else like you comes here for the first time, we take really good care of you. We give you the best service and give you a nice table and give you bonus this and have free dessert and everything else, because we know if you're happy, you're a $2,000 customer. And so that's how the top people in business think is how much value, sales, profit will I make from this customer in the future, not just this one sale. Now, number 16 is the sales per employee. Many companies will say, we have 20 employees and $200,000 in sales per month. That means our average sales is $10,000 per person. Now, how can we increase our average sales? Or how can we lower the number of people delivering those sales? Number 17 is the sales per day, per week, per month. Restaurants, by the way, calculate their sales based on meal. One of the most successful restaurants in San Diego is just around the corner from us, and I was talking to the manager, and she was talking about how they just had their best luncheon sales of their history. And then they had the best dinner sales 2 nights later. And they count, after lunch, they add up all the receipts in the cash register to determine exactly how much they sold gross and net for lunch. And they calculate it every single day. I was on a television show, it's called QVC, which is a sales channel where they sell all kinds of products. And when I was on there talking about my product, and they're interviewing me about the product, there's a big meter going tick, 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 showing the number of people calling in and buying. And if your sales are below a certain level, they jerk you. They say, well, thank you very much for being on the show. Get you off and get somebody else in there with their product. I mean, it's real tough. When you're giving your talk on television like this, and they say, all done, get off. And they say, we'll be back in a minute, folks. They put somebody else in there to talk about their product because my sales were too low. And so I went back into the back. They're going to give me another chance in the evening. I went back in the back and I redesigned my whole sales presentation. And instead of talking about my product, which we talked about yesterday, my product, I talked about you, and the difference this will make in your life. And my sales went through the roof. I mean, it was just the difference, like 20 times. All the time I talked about my product and how I developed the product and how good my product is and how good it is in comparison with others, nobody bought. As soon as I started saying, this is the difference it's going to make in your life, this is how fast you'll get these results and differences, phones fell off the hook. And you see these numbers going with everybody buying, which makes you very happy. So what is your number 18? Sales per specific product or service. Now, this is one of the most important things that you do in a company is you don't put all your sales together. You analyze your sales of each individual product and your costs for each individual product and your profits for each individual product. Number 19, your average size of upsell or cross-sell. In other words, if a person comes in and buys your basic product, how much more can you sell them by selling them a more expensive product or by selling them add-ons, cross-sells? So we buy this and you get this as well. Many companies, I think I've told you this before, but in the automobile industry in the Western world, United States, Europe, and so on, you can go on to a website and you can pick any car you want and you'll find every single car of that description that is for sale within 50 or 500 miles. And every single price, description, age, length, color, everything is in it, and you got the price. So everybody who buys a car goes online and say, I'm interested in getting this car or that car. Go online, punch it in, immediately print out every car that's available and the price. So when they walk into the car dealership, they got this information. Don't try to tell me it costs this or it costs that or something else, because I know exactly what it costs in this market. So every car salesperson knows that the customer knows. So what they do is they agree to match the lowest and best price of any other dealership within 50 miles. And then they take you, sit you down, love you, give you a cup of coffee. And then they say, oh, by the way, would you like the chrome hubcaps with this? And how about the racing tires and maybe the tinted windows? And would you like a stereo set instead of just the standard radio or music? And you end up paying an extra $1,000 for the upsells. And they make all their profit on the upsells. They make all their profit on the upsells. They break even on the basic car. And so number 20 is the average number of referrals received. Many companies, by the way, will make as a condition of purchase, you say, we request that each happy customer give us the names of 2 other people who may be interested. Would that be all right with you? Almost invariably, people say, well, sure, if I'm happy, I'll give you a couple of names. And they track it. And the sales manager and the boss, everybody tracks how many referrals are we getting. Your best sales people will get 3 or 4 referrals. Your poorest salespeople will get 0 or 1. And so your economic denominator, the question is, what is it? What is your economic denominator? Your choice of this number is going to decide basically your entire business success. If you pick the wrong number, it's like dialing the wrong phone number or turning to the wrong number on a combination lock. If you got the wrong number, you go broke. All right? You struggle, and go broke. So let me tell you a quick story, and then I'm going to ask you to fill out this exercise. A friend of mine who sells language programs online. He's got a very good company, and he went bankrupt. It's a very interesting story because they wrote it up as a sort of like a case history. And he was doing really well. Business was booming. They're selling online language products, advertising, taking orders, shipping it out, and everybody's running around like chickens with their head cut off. Business is booming. And then one day their accountant came and said, "You're bankrupt. You're deeply in debt. You're bankrupt. You have to close the doors." He was shocked. He thought he was a business hero. He was building this great business, about 23, 24 years old. And I said, "There's just no more money. The money's gone, and you're finished. You can't buy any more product to sell, and they're shutting down your electricity and closing up your business. You're done." And he went home, and he was shocked. He had to go back home and live with his mother. He was shocked. He was like a person who was shell-shocked. Explosion had just gone off for about 6 months. And it takes about 6 months to recover from your first bankruptcy, by the way. And so then he started going out and talking to people. And he sat down with a friend of his. And the friend of his said, "Well, what happened to you?" "Well, we had this business, it was booming, everything was fine, and then suddenly we were bankrupt." He said, "What was your economic denominator? What was your critical number?" He said, "What?" "Well, what was the number that you tracked every single day? What was the number that everybody was watching? What was your number?" He said, I don't know what you're talking about. I had no idea. What are you talking about?" And explain to him what I just explained to you. In every company, there's a number. And this is the number that everybody watches, that everybody measures against, that everybody thinks about all the time. If you don't know that number, nobody went bankrupt. That's like going off on a trip across country with no road map and no idea where your destination is. You just drive forever. So he went back and he looked at his business and he realized the most important number was the cash profit per sale. Called it cash contribution. Is after everything, how much positive cash did each sale yield? Some would be more, some would be less. They had discount prices and bonuses. They'd have more expensive promotions and less expensive. But from that time, that moment onward, he decided he was only going to focus on net cash profit per sale. So he started up the same business over again. And this time, everybody in the company looked at that number for every single sale. Every single sale, not per day, not per week, per month, but for every single sale. And they refused to sell anything that did not have a net cash profit per sale. Today, he's on the way to building a $100 million business. He is rich, drives a Mercedes-Benz, lives in a big house on the hill, and his kids go to private schools because of that choice of the one number. Transformed the business and everybody in it. So is this an important subject that we're talking about? Yes, it is. So what I want you to do is I want you to answer these questions. Question number one is your ability to focus on certain numbers in your business can change your results. So I want you to write down, one, what are the 3 most important numbers you watch in your business? What are the 3 most important numbers that you watch? Number 2 is what are your primary sources and costs of leads and new business? In other words, where are you spending all of your money? This is the most important area of expenditure in business, is to get new business. What percentage of leads or prospects actually buy? This number is really important. What is your average size of sale? That's an important number. What are the average costs in total of each sale? And 6, what is your average gross profit on sales? 7 is what is your average real profit on sales and operations at the end of the day? How much do you actually take home? Free cash flow. How often does your typical customer buy from you? What are the number of times they buy from you, and what is their value? And 9, what is your economic denominator? What is the one number that best measures the health of your business going forward? And what one action are you going to take immediately as a result of your answers to these questions? How will you measure success? What is your expected date of completion? Now, let me be honest with you. Most of you don't know the answers. It's okay. Most people don't know the answers when we ask the first question. But that doesn't mean anything. The only thing that matters is, are you going to get the answers? These are the answers you've got to get. And you've got to get them as fast as you can, starting tomorrow. Are you with me so far? Yes, you have to know the answers. If you know these answers, you dominate your business. If you know these answers, you know exactly what you're doing. You're like a brilliant doctor who knows exactly how to take care of a patient. If you don't know these answers, you're basically like a boxer with a blindfold in the ring, fighting and flailing your hands and getting beaten and pounded by the opponent of the market that you're working in. So please write down as many answers as you can, and then take a stab at the economic denominator. Write down what you think it might be, and then go back and check with everybody. Even talk to your banker, your friends, your associates, your spouse, and say, is this really the most important number? What is it? Like in sales, by the way, the most important number is the number of calls you make. It's real simple. Do you want to increase your sales? Make more calls. You want to decrease your sales? Make fewer calls. Now, there's all kinds of things. You make better calls, on calling better people, and being better prepared, and have a better presentation, and so on. But nothing replaces making more calls. People say, how can I double my income? I say, well, how many calls are you making on average each day? I don't know. Lots, some days are different than others. No, all top salespeople make a minimum number of calls every single day before 11 a.m. It's real simple. They don't say, well, I don't know how many I made this week or this today. They know I made 7 calls before 11 a.m. And I've got it tracked here. I've written it down. I've ticked it off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. And here are the names of the people I called on and their numbers and what they said. And so if you want to double your sales, call 14 people each day. And by the law of probabilities or averages, you double your sales. It's no miracle. If you want to double the size of your business, get twice as many, talk to twice as many people, or have twice as many people come into your company. This is not a miracle. It's just very simple numbers. And this is what the big guys do. So please begin writing your answers. One more minute. One more minute. Okay, moving along now. These are very important numbers, and you'll find that all successful business people know these numbers, and they set up their business to generate these numbers. My business is set up, by the way, to generate all of these numbers on almost a daily basis. So the numbers come in, the sales, the number of sales, the size of the sales, and so on, and they go into my accountant, and my accountant gives me a report every day. I get it right here. I get it on my iPhone. I get my financial report every single day. How much in, how much out, expenses, costs, profits, payables, receivables, everything in one day. And then at the month, I have everything broken down into detail. And so I know exactly to the penny. And you must do the same. Even if you don't like numbers, and most business owners don't like numbers. And so if you don't like it, get someone else who likes numbers. There are lots of people who love numbers. They love to do these calculations. If you give them the job, they'll be so happy they'll want to kiss you on both cheeks. So if you don't love to do numbers, get somebody who loves to do numbers, and they will generate the numbers for you. And it's quite astonishing. I've been in large meetings where the accountant will come in and say, ladies and gentlemen, here are the recent numbers, here are the trends, here's what's happening with the sales and profitability of each of these products and services, markets, customers, and so on over time. And sometimes the top executives are shocked. They had no idea about the numbers. So it's really important that you know your numbers. Which brings us to something really neat. And this is based on some of the best work that's being done. There's a company in San Francisco who started this business some years ago. And what they found is that companies were going broke because they were putting all their expenses into one number, and then they were dividing it by the number of sales, or they were dividing it by the volume of the sales of each product. So they call these multi-product companies. The company may have 20 products, and so they would have all of their costs would all be going into one account and not being broken out. So they really had no idea the individual profitability of each product. They assumed at the end of the month we had this much in sales, this much in expense, so our overall profit was this. Then they started to break it out, and they found something very interesting. The company is called Maricon and Associates, and Fortune magazine wrote a story on them. And they call them the Maricon Men. Like Marathon Men was a real popular movie at that time. They call them the Maricon Men. They come into a big company, they charge $10 or $20 million to do an analysis. They give the company the analysis, it blows their minds, and the companies will increase their sales 5 or 10 times. And this is what they found out. They found out that if you take all the products that your company sells, if you are a multi-product company, you'll find there's one product that sells more than any other. It is your most profitable single product. But the only way to find that is to take and attribute to it 100% of every single cost of producing or buying and selling that product, including your wages, including rent. They would even deduct 1 penny for air conditioning attributed to each product that is sold nationwide. I mean, they would be very fastidious. And then there's a second product that is your second most profitable, and a third that is your third most. And then there are products that are less profitable and less profitable. And then they found in multi-product companies, there are a whole lot of products that were selling well, and the company was losing money on every one because they weren't focusing on all the costs involved. Now, they may have a product that's selling well, however, it also has a high level of defects, so the product has to come back, it has to be serviced, it has to be replaced. They have to pay shipping and handling and cost. They lose customers. They spend a lot of money advertising to get the customers. The customers are unhappy. They want their money back, and then they go and tell everybody else not to buy. So some products are killing the company, and they didn't even know it until they did this analysis. So this is what you want to do. Now, if a company gets into trouble, they have a specialist, and I will never forget my experience, and I've studied this exhaustively. I have all kinds of books and articles, and I've actually done this with companies. And what they do is when a big company gets into trouble and it's losing a lot of money, like IBM was, like many companies are, the board of directors, who's usually shareholders and responsible to the shareholders, will realize that this person, this president in charge of the company, is the wrong person, and they fire him. And then they'll bring in what they call a turnaround artist. And these are a turnaround specialist. These are people whose sole job is to turn companies around. In the analysis that they've done, they're almost all men because they are ruthless. They come in and they are as cold as death. They don't care about anything but saving the company. So they'll make the turnaround specialist the president of the company. And this person will come in and he'll bring in 2 people. He'll bring in an accountant and he'll bring in a marketing person. So I was on an airplane, and the airplane was delayed for 3 hours. And I was sitting next to this man, and I asked him, what do you do? And he said he's a turnaround specialist. I said, well, that's really interesting. He said, have you heard of this company? And that company at that time was a company called Prime Computer. Prime Computer was in the news the year before because it had lost $20, $30, $40 million and was in serious trouble. This year it's in the news. It's reversed completely. It's made $20, $30, $40 million and is growing rapidly. He said, maybe you've heard of Prime Computer. I said, yes. He said, that was one of my turnarounds. And I said, really? I said, do you work in a specific industry? He said, no, I work in furniture, lumber, hardware, computers, airlines, doesn't matter. Principles are all the same. I said, really? He said, yes. I go in with my 2 partners. They make me the president for a year. I go in there and change the company completely from losses to profits. And then I take a bonus of several $1 million and I go on to the next company. He said, we're booked up several years in advance. And so we were talking about this. I couldn't believe it. I said, how do you do it? He said, it's very simple. We go in and we do this analysis. We say, where are the profits? Where are the losses? And what we do is go chunk. We just cut off all the loss-making parts of the company. So whenever you read in the newspaper that someone has gone into a company losing money, and the next thing you hear, they're closing 500 stores, laying off 10,000 people. Hewlett-Packard just laid off 12,000 people and shut down 2 divisions. Biggest companies in the world. And then they transformed the business, and suddenly the company is making profits. Lou Gerstner went in. His job was to turn IBM around, and within 1 year, he turned it from $1 billion in losses to $1.6 billion in profits. And what did they do? They came in. The first thing they did is they found all the companies, all the products that were losing money, and cut them off. One very famous turnaround specialist is a man named Al Dunlop, and he's called Chainsaw Al Dunlop. You know what a chainsaw is? He just comes in and he chops off whole divisions, fires thousands of people. When Jack Welch took over IBM, it was $4 or $5 billion a year. It had been in business now for almost 100 years, and he took over the company, and they called him Neutron Jack, because an atomic neutron bomb goes off over a city, and what it does is the neutron rays kill all the people, but they leave the building standing. And so what he would do is he would go into every division and he would fire everybody. The building was left standing, and all the people were gone. And they called him Neutron Jack for the first 5 years. He went in and did this. He also was paid over the course of his career almost $500 million. He retired as one of the wealthiest executives in history, and the only reason we know how much money he got was because he got into a divorce at the end of his career, and his wife sued him for half, and it was all in the newspapers. But he made hundreds of millions of dollars by being a turnaround artist as the president of the company. So here's my rule: be your own turnaround specialist. Be your own turnaround specialist. Go into your company and stand back and say, if I was being brought in from the outside, what would I start doing, and what would I stop doing? What would I do more of? What would I do less of? What would I not get into again in terms of product, services, and people? And you ask yourself these hard questions, and then be your own turnaround specialist. Get rid of all loss-making parts of the business. I told you before that Steve Jobs, when he came back into Apple in 2006, 2007, they were producing 104 products. Over the course of the last 20 years, they kept adding a product because somebody thought it was a good idea and there was a market for it. So they added another product and another product, and all of their abilities were spread out over 104 products. But 100 of them were losing money, breaking even or losing money. So Steve Jobs came in, and he go, chunk. And they would all say, Steve Jobs, oh, what a great entrepreneur. He had a chainsaw. He just cut off 100 products, and then focused on the 4 that were making real profits, and then took the extra money and resources and engineers and developed the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad, made Apple the most valuable company in the history of the world. You can do the same sort of things on a smaller scale with your business. So I'm going to ask you to ask you to answer the questions in this session, and the questions are: what are your most profitable products and services right now? Do you know, after you've taken everything away, and there's usually only 3, sometimes it's only 1. Sometimes a company will find that 80% of their profits are coming from one product. And you know what they'll do? They'll just shut everything down and focus on that one product. Number 2 is, what are your least profitable products and services? Cost too much time, too much money, earn too little profit. Number 3, what are your most profitable tasks and activities? What are the things that you do that contribute the greatest value? Remember, we talked about this yesterday morning. You may have changed your mind up to now. Number 4, what are your most profitable marketing and sales activities? What are the marketing and sales activities that bring you the greatest number of new paying customers? And you'll find the 80-20 rule just keeps hitting you in the back of the head. 20% of all your promotional activities are bringing you 80% of all your customers and sales and profits. Number 5, what are your least productive and profitable sales and marketing activities? The reason I ask that is because the greatest enemy of success in business is called the comfort zone. Is we become comfortable doing things in a certain way, and then we're very reluctant to change, even if it's not working. And so you have to ask yourself, if I was not advertising or promoting in this way,